if you haven't already, please go ahead and share your screen with us, excuse me, your camera. We definitely want to see you all and appreciate being able to feel like we're in the same room together, even though we are virtual. So go ahead and rename yourself if you are able to. Let me go ahead and share my screen and we will get started. I'm gonna drop the link to our graphic organizer in the chat in just a moment. That way you can follow along with what we are working on, all of the good activities that we'll engage in. We'll talk about that graphic organizer in just a moment when we come back from breakout rooms, which you'll see are up in the agenda in just a second. Welcome everybody. So great to see you all. Thank you for joining us. We know you could be anywhere right now, but you're here with us. We appreciate it. All right, thank you for renaming yourselves. And the way to rename yourself, if you are not familiar, is to click on your video screen in Zoom, the top right-hand corner, those 3 dots, click that and a drop-down menu will appear. And it asks, there's several options. You should just click rename and then you can rename yourself. So welcome everybody. All right, great to see you all. Thank you for being here again. Okay, so just to frame our session today, I want to start us off with this quote: "To be alive is to be resilient no matter what life throws your way." I think that is such an important reminder, especially during times like these, where we can really feel like some days just aren't going the way that we planned. Perhaps we're trying to support our learners in their virtual school activities or assignments while juggling our own jobs and daily responsibilities. But I just want to provide us with this reminder that really, you know, to be alive is to be resilient. We've all overcome obstacles and challenges that perhaps we thought we didn't have the strength in us to overcome. So we are not starting from zero, right? You can start from wherever you are with cultivating resilience as parents and as family members. And in many school communities, right, we know that students really do sometimes show us incredible sides of themselves and are in some ways models. I remember students I've worked with in the past and had the privilege to serve previously over the years. They, you know, were used to sometimes massive levels of disruption in their daily lives. And they really were an inspiration to me. And the fact that they, you know, just to get to school each day sometimes was a big challenge. So I try to remember them and the example they set for me. So I'm Victoria James. I am MindSpark Learning's Director of Professional Learning. My email is here and will also be put into the chat. Please feel free to follow up after our snippet today. If you have questions, comments, feedback, I would love to hear from you. But let's go ahead, let's keep it moving. Here are some norms for our work time today. If you are able to and would like to share out, please do so. I will show us icons that appear here on the screen that help kind of guide our activities and our participation. But if you're not sharing aloud, please just stay muted to avoid the background noise. Actively engage and have fun. This 30 minutes will fly by, so I appreciate all of you being here today. Here are some outcomes for this snippet. You are going to identify characteristics of resilience and start to develop some resilient language and strategies for yourselves through the following 4 tools: the mood meter, unconditional positive regard, the wellness wheel, and a self-care equation. So before we dive into that, I think it's great to kind of get to know each other a little bit. And you all are going to be put into a breakout room for about 5 minutes in just a moment. The prompt in your breakout room is, we are writing a book for 2020. What is your chapter called? All right. So don't be shy. We're all here to learn. So you will be put into that breakout room for 5 minutes and I will see you back here shortly. All right. Welcome back, everybody. We are going to keep it moving, but I would like to invite anyone who would like to share their title to the chapter of their life of 2020 to the chat. Please feel free to do so. Very curious. Historians, I heard a joke that historians are going to specialize in a certain quarter of 2020 as a year that many things happened. So we want to keep track of them all. So if you would like to add your chapter name to our chat, go ahead and do so. All right, we are going to take a quick poll. This is a function in Zoom that I think is definitely fun to utilize and really does allow us to kind of like gauge how the start of this new school year has been for parents and families. So I'm going to launch the poll in just a moment. You should see 3 questions. Make sure you scroll all the way to the bottom for the third one, but that should appear on your screen now. Please go ahead and answer those quick multiple choice questions. I'll give everybody a moment to do so. And this is a great way just to sort of see how everyone's experience has been regarding this new school year with their students. So go ahead and answer those prompts. You should see the poll pop up on your screen. And it asks just a few questions about your experience as parents and families with the start of the new school year. So on a scale of 1, how would you rate the start of the school year for yourself and your students? In the past month of September, how would you rate your stress level? And in the past month, how often did you take time to care for yourself? Very curious. Thank you all for sharing. Your responses to this poll take about 10 more seconds, and then I will share the results. All right, so I'm gonna end the poll and share so you can see that a couple of folks have said that, you know, it's definitely been a rough start to the school year for both themselves and their children or child. Some say it's mediocre. It definitely looks as though stress levels are high. I can definitely imagine. And then, yes, if you see for question 3, doesn't look like in the past month, a ton of folks have taken more, you know, than five times a month to take care of themselves. It looks like the majority are about 1 to 2 times a month. Okay. All right. So thank you all for sharing your responses to that poll. That leads us into a lot of the work that we're going to dive into today in this snippet. And I want to present this next idea that you may have heard before, but it's the metaphor that the oxygen mask, right? It starts with you. So, you know, you're always told when you board a plane that you should put your own oxygen mask on before assisting others. That is really important when we consider resilience for parents and families, okay? In the fact that you can't, you know, be emotionally perhaps as available for your children, for your partner, for your friends and family that you could be if you were taking care of yourself is something to consider and remember, okay? So I'm gonna go ahead and drop the link to our graphic organizer in the chat. It forces you to make a copy, and you can use this if you like. It does feature all of the referenced activities that we're engaging in now, and I'll show you very quickly what it looks like. Once you click on that link from the chat, it'll force you to make a copy, and you can see that it has some activities and the corresponding instructions and directions for them. We really don't have so much time together today, so I have linked some resources and activities in the graphic organizer in the event that you want to return to them or learn more, okay? All right. So with that said, let's get into tool number 1, which is unconditional positive regard. So some of you may have heard of this term before. It's a concept developed by the humanistic psychologist Carl Rogers, and it's the basic acceptance and support of a person, regardless of what the person says or does. Specifically, this is more so in his realm in the context of client-centered therapy, but it does relate to working with young people, with students, with children. okay? It is not about accepting emotional or psychological abuse, but it really does speak to what is listed, featured here on the screen, is this idea that, I care about you and you have value. That is like non-negotiable, right? But you don't have to prove anything to me, that you have value and that I will care for you. And I think that is really important to preface, the relationship that we have with our students, right, as learners, but also as our kids or our nieces and nephews. So as we move throughout this snippet together, I want us to really center our work around this concept of unconditional positive regard, okay? As difficult as some of those days can be, and we just wanna like throw our hands up and scream, pull our hair out, right? It is definitely, good to remember that students are also really probably struggling during this time, right? Their lives have been, upended and turned upside down in so many ways. So this is a very positive and supportive space here in this snippet. So I want to just play you a quick clip that is linked in your graphic organizer from Michelle Sharfin, who researches unconditional positive regard.
Understanding that all behavior is an attempt to meet a need, and that while we all have the capacity to be compassionate, that we sometimes resort to harmful strategies when we don't see a better way to get our needs met. And as I'm studying this and I'm learning about it, I come across the term unconditional positive regard. And this is a term made popular by the psychologist Carl Rogers. And he defined it as accepting and supporting a person regardless of what they have said or done. Accepting or supporting a person regardless of what they have done. And I think that's it. That's what I want to give my kids. I want to stay in a space where no matter what they do, I can accept and support them. And I realize this is what they're doing at the nursery school that I'm watching. When there's a conflict between two kids, even when one child's been hurt, they walk up, they create safety, and then they listen to the kids, and they talk, and they problem solve with them about a way to figure out what to do. And there's no punishment, and no one's a bad kid, and there's no judgment, and they hold this space. And I think, you know what, this is it. This is what I'm gonna do. I write it in big letters, and I put it on our refrigerator. And I let my husband know, here's where we're at. Unconditional positive regard, okay? We're gonna wake up every day, and this is where we're going. This is what we're gonna give the kids, okay? So I'm learning, and I'm gathering tools, and I'm able to stay in this space more often, but what I realize is that I can't do it all the time. And when I digress,
okay, so that video, if you do want to watch the video in its entirety, it's linked in your graphic organizer. But as Michelle shares, right, when we reframe our kids' behavior and view it through this lens, we can begin to see that, we need to teach our little people how they can behave and express themselves in a more positive, communicative, productive way while still getting their needs met, right? If all behavior is an attempt to meet a need, how can we support our young students, our children with that to learn how to express themselves and get their needs met? So I want to invite you in your own time, we don't have time today, but in your own time, in your graphic organizer or in a journal, reflect on the following and answer these questions for yourself. How might embracing unconditional positive regard change your family dynamic? And what would it look like to implement unconditional positive regard in your household? Okay, these are powerful questions to consider. And again, I just would like to invite you to do that reflection on your own time, maybe right after this snippet. We do have plenty more tools to engage with, but these are great reflections to start with and to answer. All right, so that takes us to tool number 2, which is the mood meter. So the mood meter is developed through Yale's Center for Emotional Intelligence. Their executive director, Mark Brackett, has a social emotional learning book out called The Permission to Feel, which I would highly recommend. And one of the tools that the Yale Center for Emotional Intelligence utilizes as a part of their larger social emotional learning framework that they implement at the school system level is the mood meter, okay? And that school system level systemic program is called Ruler. Again, that's linked in your graphic organizer if you want to explore it more. But this is one of those tools that is featured in Ruler. The mood meter is a simple but powerful tool. And I've seen educators use it in their classrooms and families too. So let's go ahead and practice together now, utilizing the chat function. If you were to answer the question at the slide, how are you feeling? If you were to plot that feeling on the mood meter, and you see we have X and Y axes of pleasantness and energy, would your feeling at this moment fall into the yellow, the red, the blue, or the green? Go ahead and type that color that corresponds with your feeling into the chat. Okay, just practice with this now. It's a great tool to utilize at, at the start of the day, perhaps, maybe over the breakfast table, maybe at lunchtime if the family is taking a break, or over the dinner table, what have you. It's a good way for students and young people to start to begin to really reflect on their emotions, right? And Dr. Mark Brackett of Yale's Center for Emotional Intelligence encourages family members and parents to, help their students become emotion scientists, not emotion judges. So when we seek to understand our emotions, perhaps we can manage them, right? If we can name them, that is one of the first steps. So I see some greens, thank you, in the chat, some blues, some yellow. I see, yep, some more green. And I've seen folks say they're a rainbow, which is totally fine too. Or maybe they're a bit, like yellowish green, greenish blue, what have you. So regardless of how you're feeling today, thank you for participating in that activity. And again, you can adapt this for however best fits your children and frankly yourself, right? I sometimes put it on a small printed paper right by my workstation, and I look up and I'm saying like, how am I doing on the mood meter today? Takes that, self-reflection, that pause, because again, it is really, you have to put your own mask on first, right? If you're going to be resilient and tough in your family and with your young people, with your students, you really have to take care of yourself and invest in your own emotional well-being and mental health first. Okay, tool number 3 is the wellness wheel. So this is an incredible tool that you can utilize for yourself, and if it's age appropriate, you can adapt it however you see fit to potentially use with your children or the young people in your life. And it is a great way to kind of explore the dimensions of wellness. So those are listed here on the screen. They are emotional, financial, social, spiritual, occupational, physical, intellectual, and environmental. And I love that they kind of parse them out, but then also show how they all intersect. There are multiple dimensions of wellness. And the next slide here shows you goes a bit deeper into what those dimensions signify. So financial or occupational wellness is, satisfaction with one's work. Physical wellness is eating well, exercising, getting enough sleep, okay? So if you see here on the bottom left hand of the screen, so if you were to fill in a wellness wheel for yourself, using this tool, which is also linked in your graphic organizer, 1 to 3 signifies that in that dimension, an individual is suffering. 4 to 6 is surviving, and 7 to 10 is thriving. And again, our time is so limited today, but I really would invite you to engage with this activity and this tool on your own time. And you can use the paint function on your computer or print it out and use a colored pencil or marker. I'm going to show you an example of my wellness wheel that I completed. And again, this can change, right? And I think it can be powerful to use with your students, with your children, to show, at the start of the week or the month, this was my wellness wheel. And I don't think I'm really feeling the same way, spiritually as I was at the start of this month. Some things have happened. And I think I'm closer to maybe a 5 or a 6 as far as my spiritual wellness. And that's okay, right? Modeling that you know, we seek to understand our feelings and our emotions, not judge them. So it's a great tool to utilize for adults and for students. Obviously, you know, students' occupational wellness is probably, they're not holding down a job just yet, at least most students, especially if they're younger, but you could, you know, adjust it and adapt it for, you know, younger grades, you know, maybe going to school, right, is their occupation. So feel free to adapt it and change it as necessary to best support your learner. All right, tool number 4 is the self-care equation. So this is a worksheet that is also linked in your graphic organizer, and it just helps us, again, if we're taking care of ourselves first, putting our masks on first, this is a tool that you can use to kind of hold yourself accountable for your own self-care, right? So it takes those dimensions of wellness from the wellness wheel, and it, you know, prompts you to consider a broad intention and also identify one specific goal. So if I want to, you know, increase my environmental wellness and reduce my carbon footprint, that is a broad intention. I would write in, you know, for my specific goal for increasing environmental wellness, perhaps aiming to, you know, reduce my paper towel consumption, or make more of an effort to recycle, you know, by 30%, what have you. You can decide, but it's a great kind of tool to use with students, young people, you know, and you can say, let's do this together. Let's sit down and decide, you know, what are some specific goals we want to set for our, you know, dimensions of wellness. All right. So yes, time has flown by. We are almost finished, but I do want us to begin to close with this quote, that we may not have it all together, but together we have it all. And just really remind you all that, you know, you don't have to go it alone. You have probably felt so stressed and so overwhelmed at some moments in the past, you know, 6 months now, but, you know, you are not alone, and you can support, you know, your students in their need, but you also have to take care of yourself, right? You can't possibly be emotionally available and engaged as a parent or as a family member for your child or for your young person if you know, have not taken care of yourself. So I thought that was important to have us reflect on and engage on. Before we move to the evaluation portion, I would just like to invite folks to share some good news that maybe they have that has happened this week or today, and little wins. You know, if it really starts with us as the adults, you know, we can practice these things. So it's something small, but, you know, inviting your student, your child, or the young person in your life to share, maybe it's at the breakfast table again or over dinner, what was one good thing that happened today? And it can be something simple, you know, like I was able to help my classmate, you know, figure out the seesaw learning platform, or, you know, I answered the question right when the teacher asked for a response from the class. Small little wins, I think sometimes are important to celebrate, especially during times like these when it can feel overwhelming and exhausting, given all of the changes and ambiguities. Celebrating those small wins and those little successes can really help us remember the positives of our life. So just one thing to keep in mind. Okay, all right, so we are going to end with a connection circle. And it's really for you, you know, moving forward, what is one thing that you want to commit to doing to invest in your personal wellness? And again, that leads to resilience, because you have to take care of yourself first. If you would like to type into the chat, please feel free to do so. But what is one thing that you want to commit to doing to invest in your personal wellness moving forward? Feel free to type into the chat. And with that, we are going to move into the evaluation portion. That link will be put into the chat. Once you click on that link, it will take you to our feedback form. Please go ahead, scroll down, and select myself as your facilitator today. Record your experience. I'm going to write test here and hit submit. You just answer those 2 short questions. Once you've hit submit, you will see this link here on the screen. That is important. Don't click out and don't exit just yet. click on that link because that is where you record your attendance, okay? And we don't have our session featured, but do feel free to just write snippet here, okay? I will stay on the Zoom call for a few more minutes, but I so appreciate you all joining us today. I know it's a busy time of year, but I appreciate it, and I'm happy to follow up if anybody has questions, feedback, etc. Thank you all. Again, your feedback is anonymous on our evaluations, but your attendance, we definitely want you to get credit for your participation. So thank you all so much for joining us today, and we will see you next time. Appreciate it.